The American Theater Wing and the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts bring you the American Theater Wing's Guide to Careers in the Theater. This session, the Production Supervisor.
Hello, I'm Pia Lindström with the American Theater Wing, and with me is Production Supervisor Arthur Siccardi. What in the world does a production supervisor supervise?
It actually supervises right from the beginning of the creation of a show with the designer. You start with a designer and you take and you meet with him and go over his drawings. I should go back that first you're hired by a producer.
So the producer hires you.
The producer hires you. A designer may ask for you, and the producer would hire you. And the producer actually is working through a general manager.
So these people come to you, and they have the designer, set designer.
Then the set designer
has the drawings.
He has the drawings. After meeting with the director and the designer have meetings of what the director realized he wants creating-wise of the set. Mm-hmm. Then a designer will design the set, and they'll go over the drawings. And then when they finally get everything ready, we meet and we go over the drawings. I go over the drawings with the designer. I will then know the budget from the general manager of what they expect to spend.
So he says $1 million.
They say $1 million. That's a lot.
That's
that's one of the big musicals. That's a big musical.
Well, you do a lot of big
musicals. I do a lot of big musicals, yes. So $1 million, it could be $1 million, $1.5 million. Okay. It could be 800,000, whatever it may be.
Okay.
Then you go over with the designer on the drawings. Mm-hmm. And you have an idea, if you're doing enough shows, of basically what it's going to cost. And then you have to go over to the extent of how many men will be working the show, how much motorization will be on the show, fly floors, on the deck. And then you keep going over this, and then when you finally have the drawings, you have what we call a bid session. And the bid session is where we call shops in. I call different shops in to come and bid on the show.
When you say a shop, that's a construction
That's a construction shop,
company?
Automation shops. There are quite a few of different shops.
Can you sometimes look at a drawing of the design that's been given to you and say, oh, this is going to cost more than we can afford here?
Basically, yes.
So what
But the
happens
designer
then?
will still say, put it out for bids.
Ah. So then you personally called the carpentry
I called the different shops.
Mm-hmm.
The automation shop, the prop shops, the scenic shops that have the fabrics, the shops we're building, prop shops, and I called them in. And I called quite a few in. And then what we do is we have a half-inch model, which the designer will present. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have lots of copies. We'll have a copy of all the drawings for each company that's there. And then we'll go over the show with them. He will explain the show with the model, the moving parts, the flying parts. And then I will go over each drawing with the shops about how I want it built and read the drawings very carefully.
Are you an architect? I mean, do you have training in that
I've
area?
had some architect training, but I'm not an architect.
Is that something that would be needed for this?
No, not really. What's needed to be able to actually know how you want it constructed and built to go into the theater, and the breakdown, and make sure it comes into the theater properly.
So what background would be good?
Well, I started in a carpenter. Well, I did take school at night for drawing, architect drawings. Ah. And then I was in shops, first television shops, then legitimate shops. Legitimate shops is what I'm talking about, the scenery here.
And by legitimate, you mean a theater?
A theater, Broadway theater. TV is different building than legit, because TV just builds a box set. They don't have to troupe. On Broadway, you have to build it to be able to troupe if they want to troupe the show.
So you have to be able to negotiate and talk to the producer the general manager, and the designer. You have to speak their language, in other words.
I'm the one in between all three.
You're between everybody, and you tell them you can do this, you can't do that. This will work, that won't work.
Right. The word can't's not my dictionary. The word is up to the producer. You cannot afford this on the money you've allowed. If you want to give more money, you can have that. If not, adjustments have to be made by the designer. And then the producers will make their mind up.
Are you the person who hires the crew that will move this set around?
Yes.
And where do you find these people?
It's people I've kind of grew up with when I started working just as a stagehand. And then I started taking my shows out, and I really feel I have the best people. My prejudice, yes.
How many men do you hire, and women? Are there women?
There are some women, yes.
How
Well,
many?
it all depends how many shows. A Broadway show right now, you would say there are 4 in the carpet department. This is what we call contracts.
Okay.
Men who are paid by the producer, not by the theater. And they are usually 4 in the carpenter, 2 in props, 2 in sound, and 3 in electric.
And if it's automated, do you need that many people?
In automation, yes, because what happens is you have automation on the fly floor.
What's the fly floor?
The fly floor are the pieces that would be flying in. If you were watching a show and you saw scenery flying in and out, that is coming from the fly floor, the grid, and the men are pulling it, or it's motorized from there.
What's the grid?
The grid.
Is that a grid?
This is a grid, yes.
Let's look at a grid. What is a grid, first of all?
Grid is, if you were to be in a theater backstage and you looked up, you would see, we call it a grid because it's where the head blocks, and what is a head block? A head block is what takes the lines through. Below that, you have a house pipe with lines going up and down.
Electrical lines?
No, they're all cable.
Oh, cable
Quarter-inch
lines.
cable.
Cable lines. And
That-
these are the lights you're talking about?
No, this is the whole, this is everything.
This is-
This is lights, borders, flats, flying pieces. Motorized sets are what you may be able to see here. These are the motors that right now are in the grid for Mamma Mia. And those are all motorized pieces, as you can see.
So
There's
you
quite a
have to
few.
know how to operate all these motorized things. You have to be an engineer.
The shop supplies and we install. They give us, I make sure we get the working drawings and I make sure it's all tested before we get it. And then we bring it to the theater, and then you have a computer, which is a big computer you may see, that's on the fly floor that the flyman will be working. And then you have automation, which is on the deck. Now, the deck is anything that you may see moving in and out, unit-wise. That's what we call the deck, or an elevator coming up from the basement.
That's all, even though it's down, it's called the
It's
deck.
automation. It's part of the deck.
It's part of the deck. Is anything that moves in any
Anything that
direction?
moves, like in Mamma Mia, we have an elevator we bring up. I can't tell you when the show.
Right.
That comes up. And we have the units that come on, swing around, and move.
Or in Phantom, the
The
chandelier,
chandelier
comes down. That's all your
and
department.
It's all mine. And Sunset Boulevard, the mansion that came down. That
So
was
if it
ours.
falls down, it's your department.
The buck stops here. Cats, the tire, and going to heaven. Then you have the helicopter. Those are all automation pieces.
And do you need many men and women to work those automations?
No.
Or less?
Less.
Men and women
Less
to do
men.
it. But
you only have one.
Who can-
One man would work all the automation on the fly floor, and one man would work all the automation on the deck.
Why does
You
it-
could have 19 flying pieces on the fly floor, automated. One man would push the button for all those.
Why does it cost so much if there's only one man doing it?
It costs on the installation. In other words, there's a fee, there's a prep charge, and then there's a weekly rental of the motors. But compared to that, in other words, you only motorize a show, let's say at one time in the show you have 7 pieces moving at once. and the rest of the show you only have 3 pieces moving at once. Well, you would only motorize, if you could, 4 of those pieces, because if you have three men working, you wouldn't motorize the whole show. You motorize to economically reasons for a fly floor of manpower.
Okay.
Most musicals now have 1 or 2 men on the fly floor, and the rest is all motorized.
When you have the set built and move it in, how many men does that take?
That will take
Big show.
That will take an average of 14 the carpenter, 14 electricians, and probably 6 in sound, because sound is big.
So that's a
and
big
4
crew.
in props. That's a big crew.
A big crew to move it from the shop where it was built.
That's correct.
Now, when you go to the shop after they build it and check it out?
Once I decide what shop is getting the show, and I decide that, not sometimes on the price, because I know certain shops cannot build. Oh. They cannot do what they bid on. Mm-hmm. And that's my part to convince the producer that, look, that shop cannot do this. And then whatever shops get the show, I go to the shops right away. I sit down with their foreman, their supervisor, their builder, the owner, and I bring my designer there, and we go over the show, and I tell them how I want it built. And what I do, is I don't leave the shop until it's been approved artistically by the designer, that he's happy with the painting of everything. And then I make everything hung. When I say hung, I mean I made them hang it in the shop so that I know when it gets to the theater, it'll hang straight. Because if it's cocked and you have something there, it will not clear going in and out. So we literally hang everything. And then I have the deck put together. I have the automation set up, and I make it work in the theater. I mean, in the shop.
In the shop first.
I can give you an example of a show, Mamma Mia. Mm-hmm. We set the whole show up in the shop, and I did 40 hours of programming with the walls that turn and spin and everything else. We did that in the shop. We loaded it in. The stage manager took 6 hours to do what he wants, brought the actors on stage, and everything worked. Thank God.
Because if it didn't, it would be your fault.
Yes, I mean, it would be. And this saves time.
Right.
It may cost some money in the shop, but it's much more economical doing that than doing in the theater with 40 men or so waiting for something to be fixed because it didn't clear going out.
So you have to know about design. You have to know physically about construction.
Yes.
To test these things. You
Yes.
have to know some electronics.
Yes.
You have to know how to deal with people.
That's a very big thing.
Is that a very big thing? It's a team effort?
Yes, it's a very big thing, and that's why I feel very prejudiced. The people I have in the show are so dedicated to the show, and they're so nice, and people like them. You can have talented people who really don't get along. It doesn't work. It's got to be a family. It's got to be a group. I have a philosophy that the weakest link will break the chain. What's the weakest link? Is it the doorman? Is it the carpenter? Is it wardrobe? Is it props? It doesn't matter. The weakest link becomes the strongest link.
So you go over each of these people.
Everything.
And everything. You have to... Apparently you are known as one of the 100 most powerful people in the theater.
Well...
So you're right. It was in a Theater Week magazine called you that.
Yes,
so that obviously you're right at the center of all of these different elements.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you have to wear many hats.
I wear many hats, yes. You change all the time, to the lighting designer, to the set designer, to the sound designers.
How did you learn all this?
I actually started, as I said, in the shops. And my uncle was the carpenter at City Center. And he used to call me in just to go up there. On weekends, I used to put-ons and takeouts.
What's a put-on and takeout?
A put-on is a takeout is there's a show playing, and it's closed. Now you take the scenery down, the drops down, you put it in a truck, and it goes away. And then another truck pulls in with the new show, which could be a deck, could be all flying scenery, it could be units, it could be travelers. Travelers are things that move on and off.
On and off what?
Of the stage.
On a
A traveler, try to visualize a travel track in your house, a curtain track.
a curtain track.
Okay, well, it's pulled manually
I
at
see.
that time. Now they're motorized.
Right.
And then we would hang the show. And I sometimes would work it, sometimes not. And little by little, I got to do more and more. And I was there one time when a person named Teddy Van Bemmel came in to do a show. And he asked my uncle who I was. And my uncle told him, and he said, well, does he want to go on the road? My uncle said, I don't know. And he came over and asked me if I'd like to go out with a show called Gypsy
Oh,
with Ethel Merman.
right.
And I said, I've never been out. I know nothing about it. I've worked Jamaica and New York and a few other shows, Lawrence of Living, and that was my start. And I went out with that show, and I was assistant carpenter, then I became carpenter of the show. And then I spent quite a few years with David Merrick doing his shows.
Such as?
Oh, such as, oh God, I Do, Happy Time, Hello Dolly, Roy the Grease Paint, 110 the Shade, Cactus Flower.
So you've done 200 or so shows.
Over that.
Over 200.
Yes.
300 shows.
Over 200, yes.
Do you travel a lot in your job?
Yes, yes. Well, what happened is the show, a fellow named Michael Bennett. There was a fellow named Bar Baby who was assistant. Michael got me to do a show called Twigs, and then I did a show called Chorus Line. And then that started the traveling.
Well, when you travel with all these sets?
No, the first time I travel is to go out to see if the shows can play these theaters. We do, it's like we call a research.
Oh.
We go out to see if the show physically can fit into that theater or theaters. Like I have a book of all.
You have several shows going at once, is that?
Yeah. Oh, I've had as many as 7, 10 at one time.
7 or 10 shows, and this is the book that keeps it all.
Well, this book here right now is 3 shows.
I see. So this is what it looks like.
This is the theaters that we're looking through now to put the second road company of Mamma Mia in.
I see.
There are some theaters here that the show physically won't fit in as is.
So you have to actually go to the theaters.
What I do is I go through this book,
see.
and then I tell the producer the show cannot play that theater as is. And then they may say, well, the theater will make changes. What changes is needed?
I see.
And then they may go out to those theaters and then talk to them about it.
And either change the theater or find another theater.
That's correct.
Well,
that's absolutely correct.
Do you change the size of the sets? I mean, you...
What you do when you do a road show, you take all the theaters that the producer says the show has to play in. And then you take the smallest of those theaters. And then you tell a designer, you have to design the show in this footprint. Well, it's not designed for that. I said, I know, but the show is going on the road, so we have to make changes to fit this footprint. And they do. They would then make changes, and they work with the director.
Well, how can it go from a little house to a bigger house and a little house to a bigger house?
Sometimes they have what they call an A and B show. An A and B show would be like, well, let's say we're going to go, I'll not use this as anything negative, but we're going to North Dakota to a show that may play a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday there only, because that's all they can afford. But then they're going to go to Frisco for 5 weeks. Well, then you have what we call show A. When you go into a bigger theater, you have extra pieces that you can fit in and do. Most road shows now go out and go in on a Monday night for a Tuesday night show. So that's 14 hours. That's a big cut down. A major show would go in on a Monday and open on a Thursday, but there are so few of those shows left that have that luxury to do that. It's just the economics.
What are some of the things you have to know to do your job? Fire regulations?
Oh, you have to know completely the fire regulation. What I do is I call the fire department in beforehand, like the show we're doing right now. Not to be a name drop, Mamma Mia. I have brought them in. We got smoke detectors underneath the stage, because it's a rake stage. Below
the stage, meaning
the rake means stage. It means it's not flat; it rakes up. So underneath that, we have smoke detectors, and then we have fire sprinkler systems in the orchestra pit besides smoke detectors. And then underneath the stage where the elevator is, we have smoke detectors and sprinkler systems. And then in a quick change room, to give you an example, downstairs in the basement, we have smoke detectors and sprinkler systems. And I do all this ahead of time. So when the fire department comes, they know, they can look to see if it's been done. And then we have a book. I have a book, and in that book has each material that's used in the show and the fireproof certificate that goes with it.
Oh.
Like,
You mean
let's say,
fabric?
let's
You
say
have
your sweater there.
Oh.
I would have a piece of that, and then I would have the fireproof certificate.
Oh my!
On each, I'm talking about props. I'm talking about sheets. I'm talking about blankets, curtains. Everything you see.
Each one you have to have a permit for
I have
it?
a piece. It's about a foot by foot I give them.
Oh my goodness!
And then you have to do that when you go to Boston, Washington, Chicago, everything. You have books like that. And it works. Some people just give them the samples. I give them a book with the fiber certificate. Like, this is page 1. Here's the certificate.
Right.
Here's the material.
Right, so
they
can
turn it over. And it makes their life easier, too.
Right.
So everything. I mean, the acoustic material in the orchestra pit. Everything.
Every single thing.
Everything that we've used, there is a piece of. Now, I mean, like, if I have 5 borders that are the same material, I just have a piece of that.
Right.
But every different
so
material.
A tassel, whatever.
A tassel, everything.
Oh my goodness,
everything.
That's hard to keep track of.
Right now there's a book, there's one book size this, and there's a book double the size of that.
And if you have 5 or 6 shows.
They all have them.
So you have to know all those fire, and you have to catalog all that. What about trucking union rules?
Trucking, I deal with.
You
deal with the trucking, and you get bids from different companies going out of town. They have 40-foot trailers, and now they have 53-foot trailers. And then you get bids from them going from town to town. You give them the whole route. The whole route would be like, say, I'm just going out from Washington, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, L.A., Dallas.
Are there companies that specialize in
moving
theatrical?
There are 3 different companies that specialize in that.
In moving sets?
Sets.
What other things do you have to know to do your job?
And then you have to deal with the Teamsters.
Ah.
How many Teamsters are going to be there? How much does it cost?
What do the
per
Teamsters
truck?
do on a...
They load and unload.
Oh, they load the trucks.
Right. Now, not in all places. Some places stagehands do that. Okay. You have to know that. Then you have to know, are they paid by the truck? Or are they paid 8-hour call, 4-hour call? In other words, if they're paid 4 hours, I could unload 3 trucks at a time. Well, I could load 3 trucks at a time. But if they're paid by truck, then I have to pay them by truck instead of the period of time. And then you deal with double drivers for the truck drivers. How many hours to get there? All right. Well, it won't get there with one driver because they're only allowed to drive so many hours. So you put double drivers on. And what time does it get there? Now you have to work around the clock. That's a lot more money. So you got to break that down.
So you've got another book for that.
Oh, you got to. There are books upon books. I mean,
you have a huge office filled with books.
There's everything. I mean, you deal with the wardrobe department. Make
You-
sure washer and dryers are there for them. Make sure Their irons are there. Make sure the power is there for them.
So you have to oversee the wardrobe
Everything.
as well? The costumes, and if they have a place to hang?
Everything. They come to me, and
If the iron doesn't work, they come to you?
they come to me.
If the dress doesn't fit, they come to you?
Wherever the girls are supposed to be here working. Why aren't they here?
So you have another book
So
for the costume
you work with them
department.
with the business agent for the wardrobe department.
And what other departments do you have?
Sound has become the big one.
Big.
The big
because
one.
it's loud. It's loud
It's
these
loud.
days, and you've got a lot of
loud.
guys. And
it is big, and there's
Big.
more equipment. Like at Mamma Mia, I have two towers out front that weigh 3,000 pounds apiece.
oh my gosh.
It's huge. And then I had to get that's when I had the fire chiefs had to come in New York to make sure I got the right room. They need a lot of room out front, so I had to build for them, and I wanted to make sure the clearance was right. I was right. I mean, I had a foot over. But you have to get them in, because sound is becoming
Big.
the biggie.
So you have to be in charge of everything that's moved in and moved out.
I have to take responsibility for all of it, yes.
You have a drawing over here, and can you describe what that is?
That's
it looks
called
like an architectural plan to me.
It's called a ground plan. Now, what's a ground plan? A ground plan is basically, if you were looking down, that would be we call a ground plan. And that is basically shows you the show. Now,
What's up at the top there?
on
What's
the
in
top,
the top?
way on top,
Yes, along there.
that's sound booths.
Those are the sound booths.
We
the-
have sound booths.
The
in the
dreaded
show.
sound booths.
That's
okay.
correct. And they're lined up there. Now, when I say sound booths, I mean sound booths. They all insulated for sound. I mean, no noise, no nothing.
So you have to build that because they're not
exactly.
there.
We build, everything is built.
Oh.
When you get a theater, you get what we call four walls. You walk in, it's bare. It's a bare stage. You got the pipes, you got a bare stage. You bring everything in.
Now you're moving in where Cats was.
That's
and that was a
correct.
pretty big thing they
I
had
did the
built
show.
in there. You did Cats
did
as well.
Cats,
So
yes.
now you had to rip out
They rip
the
it out,
Cats
and they restored the whole theater.
and put this in. Okay, we've got the sound booths. What's that curving line I
That's
see?
what we call, in the show, it's called the jetty.
The jetty.
It rises, it's flat, but it rises up and down.
I see.
Right there is we call that stairs. That's the second part. That's called the beach area.
People walk on that? Is that a
They walk.
ramp?
Right now, it's flat on the deck, but it does come up.
I see.
Those marks going sideways there. Those are stairs.
I
Right
see
there.
I
Those
see.
are stairs. No, in further. That's the stairs.
I see.
And so they come up, and they would open up, and the people would go upstage, and those there are for downstage.
Now, what are the four? I see four like boxes or.
Over there,
Yes, what's
those
that?
are big legs that have lights in them, and they light up.
They're on the ground, or
they're on the ground. They're
Oh.
about 24 feet high,
Oh.
and they are permanent.
Oh, so they would light.
They
all
light
that.
the show. The four of them light
I
up at
see.
different times.
I see. Well, this is not the one you take on the road.
No.
This one will go here in New York City, and
That's
then
it.
you'll have another one made a little smaller.
We have one on the road now.
Oh.
That's basically the same as that show, except it doesn't have the side light boxes there. It's kind of straight.
I see. I see.
And that's a show that goes in 4 days before and opens on a Thursday night. It's like 14 trailers. That's a big show. There's very few shows that have the opportunity to do that, like that show did, or Cats, or Phantom, or people that could dictate the time because they want it, because it sits down for 14 weeks. So that's a different story. So by doing a Thursday night, they can make up the time with extra matinees. Because the presenter has to make the time up for them.
So now we've gotten the set up.
Right.
Now the actors come onto the set, and they say, "Oh, I don't like this. I can't see. I can't." Do you have to deal with that chair? I'm going to trip over it. You put it
No,
there.
then the director will deal with the actors. Like, he'll put them in positions. They'll walk around to the side to see sight lines and say, "No, I can't see you there. We got to move you." No, that unit's not in the right position. I want to change the angle of that.
So the director then
The
talks
direct-
to you about changing.
Once it gets up and running and working, we turn it over to the director, the designer, and the lighting designer, and the sound designer.
But you are there.
And I'm there from 8 in the morning until they leave at night. And after then, we have a meeting.
Oh, well, after everybody else leaves,
We have meetings.
you have the meeting.
I have the meeting. Right now, about 8 to 10, 8 in the morning till 10 at night.
Oh.
And that'll go on. That's been going on 3 weeks. It'll go on until the 18th of October.
Do you
including
like that?
Saturday and Sundays.
Do you like that?
I don't like working all those hours, no. I do not.
You must like something because...
I do enjoy my work.
Yeah,
I do enjoy my work.
You're doing it. You've stayed
and
there.
I enjoy the people I work with.
Uh-huh.
I just don't work with people I don't want to work with. I enjoy my job. I enjoy people I work with.
What's the most exciting part of it? Is it when you see the set up
When
and people...
when you see it up and it's all lit, and then they work the show and they bring the orchestra in, and you, like this afternoon, we have a full run through without orchestra. It's wonderful. And on this show, they did something different than the other shows, and we made our first move last night and it worked beautiful, and they were ecstatic about it. Those are kind of satisfaction. It kind of makes you happy.
Tell me
and
more
it makes
about
the shops.
why.
It makes the shops. I tell the shops, you did a great job.
So they all feel like they're part of the team.
You make them.
Right.
You make a team. It goes back to my weakest link.
Yeah.
And the word can't is not in the dictionary. That is not in the dictionary on our shows.
On shows.
We've come up with a solution for them.
Is it like a family?
Yes. Every show is like a family. And
Is that some
and
of
you
the
get a
appeal?
relationship, and some you get closer. You get closer. You get
Closer than
kind
you
of
would think.
personal.
on
You get closer with people. Then sometimes you just work and you do a show and you enjoy working with people. But some shows you get closer with people and you get a close relationship and you kind of bond even after the show is over.
Huh.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful Broadway.
Is it?
I love it.
Even
I
if those
love it.
hours, you love it.
I love it.
What else do you love about it?
I love when it's a hit.
Do you get paid more if it's a hit?
When we call a royalty check.
So who pays you the royalty check?
The producer.
So you're paid by the producer. What can
I am paid by producer. I get a fee.
And
to
give
put
us an
the show
example of
on.
what can a production supervisor earn? What are the areas?
It all depends what that person asks for.
Well, say you're beginning or you're a real professional and in demand.
Well,
I mean, what's the
You kind of get
range?
more.
Well, what's the range of salaries? Are you a union?
No, I'm a union person, but not this.
So what's the
I have a
salary
company called
range?
Theatrical Services Inc., which is me.
Okay.
And the range, well, I'd rather, it's very hard to say the range can be.
Well, you're paid $50,000
Well, you can be paid that much, you can
Or
be paid less. I mean, it's,
35 to
you can be paid anything. It's up to
a lot.
It's up to the show. A show
Yeah.
kind of dictates that. If you get a small show,
Well, of course.
it's not
But
as
if you
much.
get a
You get a
big
bigger
show.
show, it's more. And the
So
weeklies
you can
are
make a
more.
good living if you
I
get
make
some
a
good
very
shit.
good
If you
living.
can get okay.
People have been very good to me.
And you've been good to people. You're known as a winch wizard. What's a winch?
Well, that's what we talked about here, the motorized.
The motorized
The
things.
motorized winches.
They used to be, I
Used
guess.
to be a manual.
Used to be a
hand.
manual, like on a boat or a ship
a man
or whatever.
used to
the
turn
winch.
it by hand, yes.
But now you don't have to.
No, because shows have become more technical, more automation. In the olden days, you had drops that flew up and down and units have moved in, but now...
And it's sacks of sand or something.
Now you have
pulled it.
many, you had hemp houses, counterweight houses. Now it's becoming more. I mean, I have an expression, it's called E.T. Live on Broadway.
Because?
They're paying a lot of money, and now we give them more gimmicks.
More stuff.
More stuff.
Is that Hollywood influence of special effects and so on?
I believe Cat started it all.
Cat started it.
I believe Cat started
You
it
started
all.
it.
I know. Cat,
So you were
Cat
doing
started
it.
it all.
With the technical.
With the technical end of it.
So if a person's interested in technical things, this is actually a good profession because you use a lot of technical
It is.
aspects.
It is. It's a very good. And
So if a person's interested in technical, in carpentry, in electronics, these are all areas that...
these are all areas that they can get involved in.
How would you suggest a person get started? Is there
If it-
something they should study?
Well, I'm sure they're studying in school or college. And then, depending what they want to do or be, they should start out as an assistant to designers. They should try to find designers to work with.
I see.
And or off-Broadway, regional theaters, anything to start with. And then they got to find their niche. Do I want to be a lighting designer? Do I want to be a sound designer? Do
What
I
if
want to
they
be
want
a
to be
costume
a
designer?
production supervisor?
They got to start in the end of the business of learning the drawings, the building of it, the working in the shop, the putting on of it, going to the grid. The grid's the secret of a show.
The grid, we saw The Secret.
If it works from the grid, it works on the deck. And it's just training. It's like, you know, you crawl before you walk, before you run. It's years and years.
Did you learn a lot from designers yourself?
Yes. Yes, you learn a lot from designers.
What do you learn from designers?
Well, you learn from designers what they have in their mind, what creation they want. And then you then have to take that and make it work for them. Some designers, it's a pleasure to work with.
Which were the best or the greatest designers you worked
Well, I was fortunate to work with like a Joe Melzina,
and
an
tell me
Oliver
about
Smith.
tell me about Joe
Oh,
Melzina.
Joe Melzina was a perfect gentleman. I worked with him on Gypsy.
Right.
He was a lighting designer at that show also.
I see.
I think Joe was one of the creative for designers, and Oliver Smith. We all know Oliver Smith, I think.
Well,
we all
no,
do.
tell us about
Oliver Smith was one of the great designers, like Fair Lady, Camelot, West Side Story, and he was one of the brilliant ones.
What did you learn from him?
I learned from them. Each one you learn something different from. And you learn the individual, and you know what they're looking for and what they want, and how they visualize it and how they see it.
When you see the drawings, can you visualize the set yourself?
I can now, yes.
You can now. I mean,
was
when they
hard.
first talked to you about chorus line and said we're going to have a few mirrors around, did you know what that was going to entail?
I kind of knew because of Robin, but
Robin
Wagner,
who was the designer
he was the set
of that.
designer for that show, Chorus Line. I mean, Michael Bennett was the creative for so many things that's happening now on Broadway. I mean, he could visualize a set. I mean, to watch him and Theomi and Thurman's a lighting designer, and Robin Wagner work, it was just something. It was brilliant. It was just absolutely working. And Michael was the brilliant man of the, you know, the choreographer, the writer, the director. You know how to deal with the costumes, how to deal with lighting. He was the package.
Sounds like you really love the theater.
Oh, he was.
Well, you.
brilliant. I
Sounds
do.
like-
I
sounds
loved
like
it.
you do.
I was fortunate to work, you know, with oh God, Jerry Robbins, Bob Fosse, Gower Champion. I've been very fortunate.
When you were young, did you ever imagine you'd have a life in the theater? Was that something you
No, I
saw yourself?
started playing professional baseball at first.
Oh, that's how you get it.
And then I was going to school at night in the off season, and that's how it all started.
So you were a baseball player. Did any of those skills come in handy as a production supervisor?
No, maybe personality.
Team playing? Being
It is.
a member of a
yes,
team?
Yes. It's really getting along with people is so important, because you can be brilliant. Not that I'm brilliant, I'm going to be wrong. But you can be brilliant or extra smart. But if you cannot get along with people, you're not going to be around long, because why do they need you? As I tell the fellows who work for us, we have nothing to give but service. We are here to service the director, the producer, the general manager, the designer, the set designer, lighting designer, whoever it may be. We're here to service. That's what we have to sell, service.
Do they agree with you?
Oh, they agree, or they wouldn't be on
They're
the show.
out?
They're out. Absolutely.
Where did you get this ability then to work with people?
I think it just came from maybe my mother and father, the way they brought me up, taught me. Because we had that in high school. I was fortunate to play 3 sports, and all this. And so we just grew. You just kind of grew, and you all got along. If you didn't get along, it just...
You find that young people who come looking for jobs have that same frame of mind?
Some do and some don't. Some do and some don't. Some feel now that the business owes them a job. The business doesn't owe anybody anything. It gives you a great opportunity to make a great living. And I try to explain to some of these fellas that, you know, even though they're not working with me, or I give lectures, that, you know, it's a great opportunity, but you have to be able to get along with people. You have to be able to go in there and have a smile and laugh, or kid, or know when to be serious, or know when they're serious about this, or when they are happy. It's a lot of different hats.
Your job has been evolving from carpenter to, as you say, it's become more and more technical, to production supervisor. Where do you see this going? Where are we heading here?
Well, I think in myself personally, I think I've reached my niche of doing what I'm doing. Now, there are other people who may want to incorporate this more and take over more of a position. I just don't see that right now. I see that this is a very great position, and it's a great service that you give. Because in the olden days, I hate to say olden days, but olden days, you didn't have this position, and you didn't. The general manager had what they call a carpenter, and they just did the shows. But as the shows got more bigger and more technical, and the general manager job became more expanded on different situations, that you needed someone to pick up that little slack, that little thing in between. And they created that position.
When you look around at the other men, are there women who have your positions, or is this primarily...
No, there's some other women.
What are some of the qualities that they have? I know certainly an ability to get along with people. What other attributes do they have?
Well, some of them, I'm sorry to say, have not grown up from the ground floor like I say I did. They've come from different positions, and I just think that they're very good, they're very smart. I think sometimes they miss knowledge because they haven't had the opportunity to been there. I mean, there were many hours I spent in the grid myself, many hours.
Right.
I mean, I've been in there 24 hours without coming down sometimes.
24 hours?
Oh, I've actually
Would you sleep up there?
No, I've actually got up
wherever...
on a Saturday morning, not going to bed till Monday night.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
No, it's true. The moving shows. So
you have to want long hours, work at night, because this isn't exactly just a day job.
No, no.
Night. You got to be night owls. You got to like the nightlife.
Especially the fellas that move the show.
Yeah.
I mean, they take a show. They get up Sunday morning and do 2 shows on a Sunday and take it out, and they won't get to bed before Monday night if they're lucky, depending upon the show.
You mentioned royalties.
Yes.
How are you paid? Once a week, a royalty?
Yes, it's like a pool. Yes, you get a, if the show is successful, you get what you call a royalty check, which is every week. You would get a check.
In addition to the
fee is the fee you get is up front to put the show on. Okay. If the show, should we say, use the word bomb? The bomb,
yes.
A bomb is a flop.
Yes.
The show, it's a show that closes.
Yes.
I don't make a lot of money. I always kid them I could do better on unemployment, because the hours and time you put in, the people who are working for you make more money on the overall time that you put in, on the hours. But if it's a hit and it runs, then that's a reward. And then you have road shows. That's the reward, because you collect on them too.
Oh, you get royalties after the show has gone around the country?
On the road shows, yes.
Oh.
You again, you take those drawings and you start from scratch again, and you build you have it built, you put the crew on, the trucking, how to get there, the whole thing, yes.
If you were going to advise a young person who thought they might be interested in a career in this area, what would your advice be?
Start from the bottom.
Start
from the bottom. Try to get into the shop. Learn about how to build scenery, because that's very important. Because you can get in there and they'll build stuff, and you won't be able to get in the loading door because it's built too big. And how do you want to have it broken down to fit in trucks? Because trucks are very expensive. So you want to actually catalog a truck. You actually catalog a truck. What goes in, where it fits, and how it comes off the truck, and how it goes on the truck. So you have to know how you want it built.
So it's very different than building a house.
Oh, no, exactly. No, this is built, how it comes apart, how it goes in the truck, how you take it off, and how you assemble it. And that's very important, because you want to be able to assemble it fast. And you want to be able to go in the truck in pieces so it fits tight.
Did anything ever fall down on you? What's the worst thing that's happened?
Nothing's ever fell down. Only once in my life, I had to cancel previews. I was on a show that I told the producer, do not go to these shops. They cannot do this show. Well, it was $500,000 cheaper than where I wanted to go. The director lost his time. We canceled previews. We had to stop previews. It was very embarrassing for me. Only once in my life.
But what happened? I mean, when you say you had to cancel, they couldn't get the set up?
No, things didn't work. Things I told them
The
wouldn't.
turntable or
I
something?
told them
or
it
whatever.
wouldn't work.
Have you ever had a show where suddenly it was supposed to turn around and just it didn't?
What you do on those shows, yeah, there was one show. It was Into the Woods.
You know, the Stephen
I think it was
Sondheim?
No, it wasn't that one. There was one show.
You've blocked it.
It didn't. Yeah.
You don't want to
what you do though is I make every motorized piece, if it breaks down, that you can operate it manually.
Oh.
Now, when that happens, let's say you have this turntable the size of this table.
Right.
Well, motorized, you can go down any speed you want. Well, manually, it kind of doesn't go as fast.
Does it jerk a little?
But it gets there, so
Right.
it doesn't stop the show. The idea is not to stop the show.
Have you ever turned down a show
Yes, I've turned down a
Because-
few shows.
because you...
There's one show I turned down that I said they could not get on in time. They could not meet their schedule, and they would be canceling 2 weeks of previews. There's a fella, myself and my partner, who passed away, named Peter Feller. And we were right. Not that we're pinning medals, but
Right,
we
right,
knew.
right. You knew you couldn't...
After this kind of spending time doing this, you kind of know how many hours it's going to take to put on, how many hours to tech it and everything. And we said it couldn't be done. And it wasn't done. But they were told it could be done. And they hired someone to do it, and it didn't work, and they lost 2 weeks previews. After it was over, they came over and said, you were right. And we said, yeah, we were right, but we lost a lot of money by being right, because we turned the show down.
You hire a lot of men, and I guess some women too, to
Absolutely.
work on these shows. Where do you find these people? Say somebody thought, well, maybe I could get onto a crew.
How
would
do
they
you
get on,
find them?
How would they get on one of your crews?
Well, in New York, I found them when I was working as a carpenter or working a put-on show. You see the people, and you go, oh, that person's good. That person's
where do you
good.
see? Oh, you see them in another show.
No, I see them in a put-on. If I'm doing
What's
a put-on,
a
a put-on is putting the show on, taking
Oh.
that physical production, loading it in, and hanging the show,
I see.
putting the deck together, putting the units together, and you see people.
I see.
And I have a saying, when you find good people, we have a saying, we run them in every race till they drop. Because they're so good, you give them the key things. There are key things that you know that, look, this has to get together. Here's I want to go together. I'm going to give you 3 men. You walk away because you, like when I just did a show, I found 2 fellas out of town who were just great. And I went to them, do you want to go out of town? They said, yes. And you start them out as we call assistants. Assistant is you have a head carpenter, a flyman, automation man maybe, and an assistant. So it's like, again, crawling before you walk.
So it's like an apprentice.
And then they work their way up. And then some of them can be the greatest assistants in the world, but they do not make a head because they don't know how to deal with people.
I see.
I mean, some get, should we say, hot under the collar, under the collar, I should say, when the director says, I want to change this.
I see. So
What do you mean you want to change it? We hung it that way. You got it. Well, I changed my mind.
So you have to have a certain temperament.
Oh, very big.
Is another very important thing.
I mean, I've rehung things 3 times, 3 different times, because the director wanted it, the designer wanted it, the line designer. Some fellas go, gee, we're doing this again? I says, yes, we're servicing them. That's what they're paying us for, whatever they may want. If they want us to hang it upside down, we're going to hang it upside down. And that's what you do. And then you find these people.
And you find them on the road? How old are they usually?
They come from anywhere from, believe it or not, 21, 28. I mean, I have 2 fellows on the road now as head carpenters. One I found in Toronto. And one I found in, well, he lives in Arizona, New Mexico. They're great. And then you find people who can do the shows that we say that go in on a Monday and open a Tuesday night. That person may not be the person to take a show out with 14 trailers and go open on a Thursday night.
So you have to be a very good judge of character, men
Well,
and women.
it's very important. I hope I am. It's very important.
But I mean, one of the qualities sounds like you have to be a good judge of which type of person can do which sort of job.
Yes, it's very important. It's very important. It's kind of a secret way, because it's important, because it makes it work. It just makes it work. You put, it's like putting the wrong apple in the basket. It'll rotten. But yes, you have to know. You really do.
If you had to start your career over again, would you do it exactly the same way, or would you have done something differently?
That's a hard question, because I do love what I'm doing, and I've been fortunate enough to work with people I want to work with.
So, I mean, you would the trajectory would have been the same, starting as a carpenter and moving on.
I would never got where I am now
if you hadn't.
if I hadn't started that way. And I was so fortunate, though. I had great teachers. I had great teachers, great general managers I worked with, I mean, 2 of the fellows who taught me, 3 of the fellows who taught me are no longer around. And I was so fortunate that I would sit down after we opened, sit down, I go over, okay, this is what I think we should be doing. And they go, wait a minute, kid, what if we did it this way? And I listen to them. I say, well, yeah, that's a good idea. Or I say, no, I think this way. And they, well, you're right. And that's why the other philosophy is 2 heads are better than 1, and 3 are better than 2. And you learn. You actually learn. When you go with the grid, and I was going the grid when I first started to work, and the fellows would show me, no, don't do that. Do it this way. Look, think about it. I say, you're right. And that's why and you still pick brains. And you still make mistakes. And the fellows, I always tell the fellows, they make mistakes, don't worry about it. I have a lot of races in my taché case. When you start making mistakes and you think you're perfect, it's time to leave the business. Because everybody, it's nature.
Yeah.
But it's not you don't make it the second time, and you correct it right away. You hope you don't make mistakes.
I don't think you make too many.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, everybody's human.
Yeah.
But you get to know the people, and I'm just so fortunate.
Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. I learned a lot.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
We've been talking with production supervisor Arthur Siccardi. For the American Theater Wing, I'm Pia Lindström.
Name Art.
The American Theater Wing's Guide to Careers in the Theater is a project of the American Theater Wing and the New York Public Library's Billy Rose Theater Collection, Theater on Film and Tape Archive.